to do what I would say something stupid, like mine and close the Straits of Hormuz or attack our bases, that will force us to do other actions against Iran. And Iran will eventually be destroyed. And how long will that take? But my concerns right now are really for our troops that are in the region that are within arm's reach, really, of Iran.
Okay, John.
A complete destruction of that zone. So that's Fordo. And then there was Natanz. That was always expected. I think the surprise one is the third one. It's called, and I don't want to mess up the name here, but it's called Isfahan. And it was the place where the very sensitive work of taking uranium from the state that Iran had enriched it and turning it into a metallic sort of capability that can be put.
All right, we're back. I think I was on X. Now I think we're on everything. Can everybody hear me?
To people. We must have had intel that some of the nuclear materials were still there, and rather than take a risk or allow Iran to move them, we hit that one. So I think the third one was the trickiest, also the least.
Everybody can hear me? Okay, good. It did this kind of quick, so I want to make sure it's working.
And I'm told the 3 planes that struck Fordo left quite a crater, turned a mountain into a crater.
Why were you surprised that Israel didn't take a crack at this first? I mean, I think one of the reasons that, and there are, I would tell you, a lot, if you go in the chats, there's a lot of upset people, right? There's some people that say, hey, President Trump did what he had to do, but there's a lot of people that are quite upset in the MAGA movement. Why do you think Israel did not lead this raid?
Probably because their planes couldn't drop the sort of bunker buster that would make a difference. And the last thing you want to do is strike Iran and not be able to take out the facility. So, you know, the truth of the matter is Israel has known from the beginning, even when it started this war, that its planes would never be able to at least take out Fordo. It's just too fortified and too deep in the ground with a big mountain sitting on top of it. America was the only option to do that. We're the only one with the capability of this bomb. And rather than take a half-hearted attempt and give the Iranians propaganda or give them time to move packages or people, I think the president decided he would do this. It would be on his terms. I think the Iranians were thinking they had a couple weeks. They had a couple days, it turned out. And I think the final decision to go today was driven by the rhetoric out of Iran the last 24 hours. They have not signaled any desire for peace or negotiation or meaningful engagement. And so why waste any more time? I think that was the president's thinking.
It's what I said on Friday on the show. Would not surprise me. Well, everyone's not looking around this weekend.
We couldn't even find out who was in charge to have a meeting. Of course, the rhetoric only heated up.
And I said, who are we negotiating with? They're all dead.
The assessment of, you know, the strike back of the Persians around the region, both in Iraq where we have troops, the naval assets we have, Persian Gulf, even hitting back maybe at some of our allies. What's your assessment of that? Because that's going to set the table. Does this get escalatory or not?
Yeah, I think the place that we need to be most on alert, most vigilant about is on our own soil with activated Hezbollah cells. While Al-Qaeda has always captured our attention in America because of the horrific 9/11 attacks, Hezbollah are much more professional. They are the best terrorists in the world, sadly. And they've had sleeper cells on our soil that we've known about. And God knows what they swept into the country. It would have been, during Joe Biden's years, it would have been a lack of diligence for Iran not to take advantage of the open border. So we don't know who's here. I think the second thing that we will be watching for, according to my U.S. intelligence sources, is some sort of cyber attack aiming for the grid or satellites. And then the third strike would be striking something in our in the Middle East region, in the Persian region. I think Iran is going to be hard pressed. They are trying to reserve all of their missiles for Israel, so striking troops there probably won't be in the top options for them. I think they want to create some shock, awe, and terror in Americans' minds to turn the American public against the president on this. So I would be watching for non-conventional, non-traditional warfare in the next 72 hours.
About Bibi, since they didn't take they weren't involved in actually the pass tonight to shut down the nuclear weaponization and enrichment. Their goal has obviously been regime change. How do you think that plays in? Do you think President Trump has backed him off that, and that may be a sine qua non of his getting involved at this level? I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
I get the sense, and again, that's from talking to both Israelis and Americans, that the president has given wide latitude to let Netanyahu wage the sort of war that he wants to for what he thinks is best in Israel's interest. Israel stands much closer to the danger of a nuclear missile and other armaments than we do, and I think the president gave some deference there. I would not be surprised if this strike tonight is followed up by a decapitation strike by Israel aimed at trying to take out the political leadership. The military leadership is extraordinarily decimated. Iran has been in chaos. Some of their plans for Iranian missiles based on our intercepts, they didn't go according to plan because they literally don't have senior officials able to make the call. And so some of their missile launches, what they thought they were doing in Iran and what actually got launched were a little off, which tells our American intelligence that Iran is disorganized, that those decapitation strikes and the military leadership have had some operational effect. I would not be surprised if Israel decides to take a decapitation strike against the leadership, whether it's the Ayatollah. My sense of it is that the president is giving Bibi Netanyahu whatever latitude he needs to finish the job. At this point, nobody expects Iran to make a deal, although the president will keep pursuing that. And I think the alternative now is for Israel to finish the job is, I think, what a lot of people are thinking. Again, this is a dangerous situation. It's why a large part of MAGA has the concerns that it does about war and picking a fight with Iran specifically because of their asymmetrical warfare, their terror warfare. So we're going to have to be on high alert for a while and see what comes next in this process. But my understanding, at least, is what the president set out to do today, limited strike to blow up 3 significant nuclear facilities. The military assessment, at least from satellites, is it achieved the mission significantly.
John, hang on one second. Matt,
I have a little bit of news. This is a statement from the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Jim Risch. And this guy is not the biggest, like, MAGA America First guy in the world. But there's a couple of things that are in it that are actually particularly revealing to me. He says, quote, among other things, by the way, he praises Trump, etc. But then later in the statement, he says, quote, this war is Israel's war, not our war. But Israel is one of our strongest allies and is disarming Iran for the good of the world. I've also always said that Israel would not allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. And he goes on and on about Israel there for another couple sentences, but then he goes the quote, this is after another paragraph praising President Trump, says, quote, this is not the start of a forever war. Again, this is Senator Jim Risch, the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He says, quote, there will not be American boots on the ground in Iran. This was a precise, limited strike, which was necessary and by all accounts was very successful. As President Trump has stated, now is the time for peace. So if you're hearing that kind of a thing from Senator Jim Risch, who's like not the most MAGA America First guy in the world, he's a decent Republican guy from Idaho, but that's a good sign, I think, that this may work for President Trump. Well, he knows that the Idaho MAGA group out there doesn't. John Solomon, how do you interpret that?
Listen, I think there is a messaging discipline among all of the Republicans, and I think it's a good thing. It emanates from the president's leadership. The president has been clear. I might do this, but it is limited, and it has a sole intention. This is Israel's war otherwise. In that process, he also is giving Israel the latitude to conduct the war they think that they think they need to carry out. I think this dynamic changes if Iran is able to strike Americans somewhere in the West, if there's an asymmetrical attack or a cyber attack. That will be what all of our country will be watching for, our top intelligence, our top cyber warriors.
Isn't that the issue? Isn't that the issue, and the issue really of MAGA? When you say give them the latitude, they essentially forced President Trump's hand. I mean, they started a war a week ago that they couldn't do what President Trump did tonight. They didn't have the capability. And here in the United States, where an overwhelming majority of the people don't want to get involved in any of this, now we're involved. I realize a limited strike to tell those guys, particularly since they jerked him around here in the last 72 hours, that their rhetoric has been the exact opposite, I would agree, of anybody you thought would get a deal done, John. But do you think that this puts more pressure, like Risch says, that this puts more pressure for us to tell Israel, hey, it's your war. If you're going to decapitate them, you own it?
my reporting is that the president was in on this from the beginning. He let Israel decide when to do it, but he never told them he would veto it or stop it. And he became as concerned as Israel did when this new intelligence came, that the ability or the completion of getting the nuclear materials to a state that then could be turned into a nuclear weapon in several weeks or months was a threshold that had always been in President Trump's back of his mind. I have had the sense since Tuesday or Wednesday that the president was going to do this on Saturday from my reporting. But I don't think the president, listen, if the president wanted to stop this, he could have stopped it. Israel would have towed the line. I think there were weeks of planning. I think the president gave explicit and implicit approval for Israel to do what it is. So it's not just Israel's war in the sense that the president knew it was going to happen, and then the president partook in the small part that he knew only America could accomplish, and that is to implode these nuclear sites. But I don't get the sense that Donald Trump got forced into this and he's just cleaning up Israel's mess. This has been far more coordinated than most of the reporting and some of the head fakes. Listen, there's a lot of head faking going on. Donald Trump is a fantastic poker player. This 2-week thing he was announcing on Friday, it was all just throw the Iranians off. And I think his plan was to, this 1-2 punch was probably where Donald Trump was 3 or 4 weeks ago from my reporting.
John Solomon, where do people go on social media this weekend to get you before the show's back on?
Yeah, Jay Solomon reports on social media, justthenews.com. It's always great to be on with the great Matt Boyle. He's an amazing reporter.
Sir, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're getting ready for the President of the United States. Short commercial break. Dave Bratt's with us. Matt Boyle's with us. The President's going to address the nation here in about 10, 15 minutes. We're going to take a short break. Be back in a moment.
All right, there we go. Let's go over to... let's go over and I got a bunch of different stuff up here. So we'll let's just go through some of this video that's out there. Of course, Geraldo. Netanyahu has suckered Trump and the USA into another forever war. Ay, ay, ay. Here's these are supposed pictures from Fordo. Let's see what else. We'll keep streaming all the way through 10, obviously, the president, about an hour or so from now. A lot of response coming in. Let's see what's going on. Oh, what's going on in the chat? Mike Pierce, what's going on Facebook? Hello, thanks. Glad to be here. Like Geraldo's ever been right about anything, exactly. President Trump reportedly believed there was no off-ramp for diplomacy with Iran. And why would he? Like John reported, they basically gave us the middle finger and said, go pound sand. We have no interest in this. We're not giving them up. They've made that clear for the last 10 years that they weren't going to do it. If they wanted to re-enter the world order, they could have easily done it. All they had to say was, okay, we're going to give it up. Just like Hamas could have said, yeah, we're not interested in this. We're going to give up the hostages. But no, they don't want to. They've made it clear they don't want to. Iran gave President Trump no choice for a decade. Well, but you haven't been saying that for the last couple weeks. Iran's giving President Trump no choice. So again, you're going to see a lot of shift. You're going to see a lot of shift in rhetoric from people now that this is actually done. People who were not saying that for weeks upon weeks on end. Tim Sheehy, the right decision. Iran had every opportunity to give up their nukes. To the naysayers out there, this isn't starting a war, this is ending one. Iran has been at war with America for 46 years. The Iranian people should rise up and put an end to this murderous regime. I agree with every word of that. Let's head over here.
In Iran, who have reached out saying they want all of this to be over. They want a peaceful region. They want opportunity. And they understand
there you
that
go.
Iran has been funneling many of the weapons.
U.S.
and
Air
money
Force
to
demo
proxies in the
footage. I wonder if
region,
that's
like
real
Hezbollah,
footage, or I don't know what that
Hamas
means.
in some
Demo
capacity,
footage?
and like the Houthis in
I guess that's
Yemen,
not the real thing.
rather
That
than
was kind of a...
focusing on the Iranian people. And so President Trump, in his post to Truth Social tonight, following the announcement that the Americans have struck these nuclear facilities in Iran, said this is an opportunity for peace. And that is the question tonight, whether or not the Iranians will take that opportunity. But again, we're getting initial reaction here on the ground in Israel from current and former officials who are praising President Trump's decision to strike these 3 nuclear facilities inside Iran as the region braces for the possibility of any sort of response from the regime. Brett?
Let's
All right, Trey, thank you.
let's see what
not happened.
we'll see what the communists are
I think
reporting tonight.
Here, there will be voices in Iran trying to throw everything that they have at us, and there will be other voices cautioning a little more prudence. And the big question, there's always been this analogy, Anderson, to Ayatollah Khomeini in 1988. He supported a UN Security Council resolution to end the Iran-Iraq war. He said, I had no choice but to drink from the poisoned chalice, meaning I had to make a compromise, end that war. And there has always been a thought, if the Iranians are under so much pressure, Khamenei, the current supreme leader, could say, I have to drink from the poisoned chalice and give up the nuclear program. Here, that choice has been made for him. And how he responds will really determine what transpires in the next week. Again, I would not, we have to be prepared for the worst, And I hope the administration is doing that. You got to prepare for the worst, and you work for, diplomatically and other means, for the best in which you contain the escalation. So that we're in a very dynamic situation right now that's going to unfold here over the coming days.
By the way, just to the point I was making before, let me just mute this. I just want to play this because this is to the point I made before.
Blackout of information more, according to the president. The other thing I can point out, Brett, is that this is an operation in the last 18 years since I've been at the Pentagon. I've never seen such operational security. There was nobody speaking about this. Any of the preparations. There was a complete lockdown, almost a blackout of information for the last few days. I'm sitting here in the Pentagon right now. I can tell you the hallways are empty, and all of the information is coming right now out of the White House. That is a significant achievement because there were no leaks about the timing. Now, sometimes I think those who, a lot of the flight trackers, the open source intelligence flight trackers, that flight radar did indicate some of when the B-2s took off from Whiteman. But again, nobody really expected that it would take place this evening. If you looked at the moon schedule, you might have had a clue because it was a waning crescent and almost a new moon on the 25th. So it would have been very, very dark over Iran tonight, and you need that in order to bomb. That's the ideal condition.
I mean, she's absolutely right. That's to the point I made before. I mean, when I saw his truth, I literally had to look at it twice. It came out from Trump War Room. I actually had to look at it twice to make sure it was real because I couldn't believe that it was over. It was done. He was saying, okay, we've done it. And I just couldn't believe it. It kind of, I almost like my jaw dropped. I was sitting here on the computer and happened to refresh the screen in Trump War Room. The official Trump X handle was the first thing I saw. And I looked at it and thought, what? And I looked at it again and I thought, holy Christmas, he did it. And then all of a sudden it just went wild and everybody had it. But man, you talk about in doing this under the cloak of night, man, unbelievable. Let me bring Vinnie Mac in. I see he's joined us. Vinnie Mac, how are you?
Hey, man. Good evening. Not surprising news from my viewpoint, as I remember last night.
Hold on a second. Can the audience hear Vin? Why is his sound coming in so weird to me? Vin, stay right there. Hold on.
Okay.
Go ahead. Talk again, Vin.
Yep. Check 1, 2.
Okay, there we go. Can everybody hear him? Yeah, I think we can hear you now. So.
Okay, good.
So yeah, I was just saying, Vin, before you jumped on, I've been on for, I don't know, half an hour, so 45 minutes. I said, I was sitting here, remember on the show last night, I said it would not surprise me if something happened this weekend when everyone's focused on him going to Bedminster and everybody thinks it's, 2 weeks. They got in their head 2 weeks now. It's going to be quiet. Would not surprise me because as we've been saying, what the hell is this 2 weeks? I mean, it's been 10 years and specifically these last 3 months, what's 2 more weeks? And we've been speculating and here we are tonight.
Yeah, you said that. And that's what I was just about to say. The level of deception here is exceptional. And when I heard he was going to Bedminster, and you mentioned that on the show last night, as you noted, I thought, this could be the perfect time to do it. No one's thinking he's going to pull the trigger. And what they did behind the scenes, by the way, they had decoy B-2s in Guam, or heading over that way to refuel, with B-2s already in transit and almost in Iran airspace at that time. Because this morning they were talking about these B-2s in Guam. And nobody talked either. So this is really brilliant how they have deceived and at least tricked everyone to thinking one thing, and then boom, they took care of it tonight. So good move on President Trump's part.
I couldn't believe it when I saw his truth. I was like, wait a minute, it's done? It's over? They're out of there? They're already out of the airspace? I mean, I just couldn't believe how... And it was so quiet all day. Jennifer Griffin, I just played the clip of her on Fox just saying how she's never seen such operational security.
Yeah, I was watching her as well, and that really struck me as well, that she said, I didn't hear anything. The thing that I hear the guys on RAV talking about and other networks now is we let in sleeper cells. We know that, there's exposure here for us as a country, and that's the one thing that's always been in the back of my mind through this entire thing. Will they be able to activate them? Do we have an eye on them already? What's going on with that side of it? Otherwise, this is a very clean stealth strike and let Israel jump in and finish the job.
Yeah, I was saying that not to get ahead of our skis, and then this is not one of these things where it's like you're looking to be like right, but honestly, if this ends up being this precision strike that we've seen, and we'll hear from the president tonight in about an hour, I'm going to keep streaming all the way through it. And I'm going to try to find us and listen to as much stuff as we can take in. But so far, I mean, I have to say we've kind of had this right of what we've talked about and what we think this is. And I mean, again, it's not like we're looking to be right or wrong about it. I mean, everybody's had an opinion on it, but I mean, if this is as precision as it seems, as well orchestrated as it seems, and obviously, as John Solomon rightly points out, there's going to be some, you're going to have to, there's going to be some backlash, have your head on a swivel kind of deal. We'll see what the next 72 hours brings, whether it's, like he said, a cyber attack or other attacks, if they think they're going to try to pull something off maybe over in that region, which seems like suicide to me with Trump. But I mean, that's going to be their decision to make. But if it ends up being just this, I'll tell you, we've nailed this right from the jump on what we think this is going to be.
Yeah, my prediction is that it will just be this, unless we're attacked somewhere, like in the Straits with our ships, or anything else happens in Iraq or anything like that. Having said that, this is now, I think, a green light for Israel to go in, not only finish the job, but take out these mullahs. I don't think this plan entails that not happening overall, because you can't have this leadership after all the things that happened. Trust this leadership to then not try and pick the pieces up again and try and do this. maybe by acquiring a nuke or doing something a little quicker, a little more dastardly. So the ball's in Israel's court, in my view, from this point forward, and short of an attack of some kind, which we have to be ready for. We've been moving all sorts of things into the area.
I'm so sick of listening to this guy. I mean, it just never ends. Dave Smith, this comic Dave Smith. Donald Trump has now launched an illegal war of aggression against Iran. Dave, why don't you just go move there? I mean, you love the people there. So, I mean, not the people, but you love the country and the leadership, obviously, so much. The risk of an absolute catastrophe is now very high, and the benefits are non-existent. The benefits are non-existent.
Yeah.
These people, is it just me? Or is this some of the most idiotic commentary on just the most basic level you've ever heard? And they try to always act like they're 4D chess players, all these guys, that they're so smart that you just can't understand how smart they are in all of their blabber, that vomit that comes out of their mouth when they get on these shows and they sit there as guests. This guy is the worst of them all. Worst of all, he did it on behalf of a foreign government against a country who posed no threat to us. Dave, just say, I hate the Jews and I'm okay with Iran having a nuclear weapon because I'm just fine with it. Just say that.
It's so aggravating, isn't it? And there's no 4D chess. This is obvious stuff. This is common sense stuff. This is very deliberate stuff. Iran, by the way, who have been at war with us since 1979. I mean, anybody that thinks differently is crazy. They have attacked our bases. They have supported almost every terrorist organization on the planet. They're right now, because Biden left Afghanistan in such a mess. They got back and forth with ISIS. The leaders are going to Iran and back. I mean, they've supported all of these factions that have been trouble for us and for Israel. Anyone to think anything otherwise, there's no 4D chess for a clown like that. This is straightforward, our defense. It's like taking out Soleimani. It's like any of that stuff. Nukes, guy wants to use them on us, we're taking them out. That doesn't need the Senate's approval, by the way. So kudos to Trump.
Our buddy Michael Knowles said they all thought he meant at least 2 weeks, when in fact, as I pointed out on my show yesterday, he clearly meant at most 2 weeks. Yeah.
It read like that to all of us too, like, and within 2 weeks, whatever you want to look at it. I think, he was trying to play the, negotiation card and just putting himself out there as this is my last resort. At some point during the 2 weeks, I've got to do something. But this clearly has been planned for a couple of weeks to do. Maybe they just agreed to do it today, but it sounds like it's something they set up campaign.
Susan Glasser says, now what? And our guy Bonchi over there at Red State says, Iran no longer has a nuclear program. That's now what? Are you expecting something else? And that's exactly right. Are you expecting something else?
How do you risk a nuclear potential disaster with a country that hates you and your biggest ally? How do you risk anything? Even if they said they're 6 months away, I would have been like 3 days away, 6 months away, 1 year away. It doesn't matter to me. We have to eliminate any chance of that against us and against Israel. So that's the now what. I mean, what would you rather have happen? Something like a nuclear device drop somewhere and hundreds of thousands of people killed? I mean, come on.
Tom Cotton, to your point, Iran has waged war of terror against the U.S. for 46 years. We could never allow them to have a nuclear weapon. God bless our brave troops. President Trump made the right call, and the Ayatollah should recall his warning not to target Americans. Exactly right.
And Damon, I think you and I were talking about this on the show a couple of times during the last 2 weeks. And that is, this is about Iran. This is about nukes. It's about Israel. It's about America. It's also about Russia, and it's also about China. We have done nothing in the last, all of Obama's term and then all of Biden's term to let those two countries who are enemies of ours know we can handle ourselves. We've done nothing to show that we can. Trump has done something right now, not only to show that he can, to show that he will. And I think that's imperative right now, because what's been going on with both of those countries is loosey-goosey stuff that we have to get under control.
Let me go into the chat, see what people are thinking. Obviously, I want to know what everyone's thinking tonight. A historic night. Let me go back here a little bit. Russia and China will back Iran. It's over? Absolutely not. They have no appetite whatsoever. China's not into backing losers.
That would have already happened, by the way. They would have already said something, as would Russia, and said, look, things would have happened already. As this thing escalated very fast. So I don't think that's a possibility. And if it is, well, it would have happened anyhow. They would have joined them anyhow. So I don't believe it is. But even if it is, that's what happened anyhow. And you got to deal with it. I jumped on quickly to join you, Dame, but it's my mom's 88th birthday, so I'm going to have to jump out.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy
birthday to Mom.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Vin. You don't have to stay. I'm going to be on for a while, so if you want to jump back, same link. I'm going to be on through the president's speech at 10 and after that, so.
Okay.
All right.
If I can get back on, I will. I wanted to jump on now and share some time with you, and I'll catch up to you maybe later.
You got it.
All right, man. Be well.
See ya. I'm just going back through your comments here. Yep. Happy birthday to Vin's mom. 88. Wow. Nice. All right, let's jump back into Rav and see what they're talking about.
It's the nuclear war. Thank God, in the history of humankind, only 2 nuclear bombs have been dropped in warfare outside of testing. And we saw what devastation they did. And of course, today's nuclear weapons are many, many times more powerful than the nuclear weapons that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So let's not forget the context here. This isn't just another President Trump saying one thing, doing something. This isn't just a political tit for tat. This is a major, major moment in world and human history, and certainly in American history. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that. I doubt I have to repeat that and to convey the enormity of this to anyone watching. But just in case I do, I wanted to make sure that that was the first and foremost thing. Another thing I want to mention. As you saw here on Real America's Voice, on my program and others, but I talked about this on American Sunrise Early Edition on Thursday morning. When Caroline Leavitt said there are 2 weeks, within 2 weeks, I made the point that it was going to be more like 2 days. Sure enough, 2 days later, the United States has acted what seems to be quite decisively. And so that is a very important fact that people need to keep in mind right now. I do not think, and I have not seen President Trump's speech that he's going to give to the nation at 10 p.m., so I give all the disclaimers there. But if I had to guess, President Trump's speech will be very much focusing on the fact that there is no further military action needed by the United States at this time. I don't think he would have authorized this kind of a strike if it was just the beginning of a larger engagement. I think that President Trump saw a unique opportunity to take out the nuclear facilities of a avowed enemy of the United States that has been killing our soldiers and civilians for 42 years, beginning with the Beirut bombing in 1983. I absolutely respect all of those who believe that the United States should not have gotten into kind of any direct conflict with Iran. I respect that opinion, and I understand that opinion. However, I would only hope that the people saying so would be at least more educated on how Iran has been threatening us with terror and with military engagement for, again, as I said, 42 years. Are we more susceptible to Iranian terror today than we were yesterday? I actually don't think so. That's how serious the Iranian terror threat has been for Americans since 1983. We've always been under threat from these maniacs, from these religious zealots who do not believe in freedom, do not even believe in the future of the human race unless it's under a particular imam. They don't even believe in the future for Muslims who are not Shia Muslims. That's how dangerous these people are. It is a non-starter that they could not get a nuclear weapon. And again, if I had to guess about something President Trump is going to say in the speech, he's going to talk about not only how he has mentioned several times since he first started running for president in June of 2015, exactly 10 years ago, that Iran can't get a nuclear weapon. I've seen statements by President Trump back as far as 2011 saying that Iran could never get a nuclear weapon. And he's going to say that there couldn't have been a more consistent and presaged action than this tonight.
Well, Jake, I wanted to thank you for coming on. I just wanted to add that, two very important Iranian Guard commanders were killed overnight. Shahryari, who was head of the weapons transfer unit to all the Middle Eastern proxies across the region from Syria to Yemen to Hamas.
Yeah, and by the way, let's just say, because you're going to hear now the Democrats, of course. Remember, let's remember, Democrats cheerleaded Obama when he bombed Libya. So I don't need to hear any take from them on what they feel about Trump bombing Iran's nuclear sites, because it's just too predictable, and we're not interested in hearing from you whatsoever at all. So just keep it to yourself. Let's see what else is going on in the chat. Rebecca Rupert, hello. Damon, hello. Rebecca, thanks for being here. Thanks for being here, everybody. We got like almost 4,300 people in here on a Saturday, unannounced Saturday night stream. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe. Moon Pie, how are you? John Lavoie, how are you? Harold R on X. Welcome on in, everybody. We'll try to take us. Someone asked me if I could find Iranian television. I don't know. Maybe I could try YouTube and see. Let me put some sound down here just to see what.
Begun with Israel on those other two locations, just to give you clarification.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. But truly, the fact that 30 Tomahawks were fired from the U.S. naval vessels, from those submarines.
Oh, wow.
Again, this just shows the strength and the ability and the precision of the U.S. military. And there's no doubt tonight, in my mind, Sean, that President Xi in Beijing and President Putin in Moscow are taking note of the U.S. military capabilities and what Israel has been able, tiny Israel has been able to accomplish in the last 10 days. So this is really a very, very significant night in terms of what the mission accomplished. But as we have discussed, what comes next? And the U.S. military is warning its personnel across the Middle East. There are 40,000 troops across the Middle East at bases in Syria, Iraq, as well as in the Gulf states. And they are now on high alert, expecting some sort of response from Iran. Now, if Iran were smart, and it's not clear that they are, they would not respond. And they would then try to negotiate in order to save their regime. But if they do something like mine the Strait of Hormuz or try to take a shot at any of those U.S. Navy vessels, or manage to fire any missiles at U.S. bases or kill any American personnel, then this will escalate a lot further. This has the potential to end right now if the Iranians do not respond. Sean?
A couple of things that you're saying, Jennifer, and you get to follow the greatest.
Let's go back to John here.
Around the globe, Hezbollah agents and other capabilities that we may not even have eyes on, given the chaos of the Biden years and the Biden border. We need to be extraordinarily vigilant over the next few weeks.
Oh, is this a replay from before?
Iran doesn't take a non-conventional warfare act on our soil or in the Western world.
Okay, it's live.
I think the secondary option would be to shoot out at our troops in the Middle East or the Gulf, the Persian Gulf, or to try to goad into the war some of the Sunni states like Saudi Arabia. If that were to happen, I suspect Iran's calculation is that Saudi Arabia, the United States, and others would join in a larger way to stop those attacks. And Iran would be even worse off than it is now. I would be looking for the intelligence people I'm talking to say a non-conventional warfare act is probably Iran's next. Meanwhile,
and
David,
I think Saudi Arabia was tired. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. One other thing I've heard, Iran just issued a mandatory shelter in house across the entire country. It happened about 10 minutes ago, but all Israelis are told, unless you have essential travel, unless you must be out, you should shelter in your place. And that is a sign that their intelligence is picking up plans for a counteroffensive for Iran. That's the first thing I'd be looking for, is the first wave of attacks on Israel, followed by non-conventional warfare against the United States, and then possibly something in the Gulf as well. So All three we have to be on alert for. We knew this. Our FBI and our intelligence community has been planning for this for a couple of weeks. So all eyes are on. All of our intelligence experts are on the field. All of our counterterrorism folks have been looking to identify any Hezbollah sleeper cells and any current activity. But that is the threat that will follow this attack unless Iran is decimated and can't even give orders.
Okay. John Solomon, thank you so much. We got a hard break right now. We'll be back, and I want to thank you so much, and we're going to come back to you.
All right, so let's. So Iranian state TV. I'll just play this just for the humor of it all.
من هدف مشروع ایران هستند. آمریکا با این اقدامی که انجام داد علیه ایران و حریم هوایی ایران را شکست و جنایت علیه ایران انجام داد دیگه جایی در منطقه غرب آسیا نداره. آقای رئیس جمهور آمریکا شما شروع کردید و ما تمومش خواهیم کرد.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sure. That's a map of the U.S. bases in the area saying, Mr. President, you started it, we will finish it. Yeah, okay. You're going to throw some goats in the air. What are you going to do? Good luck with that, pal. If these people, like Jennifer Griffin said, they're gonna play around with Trump, I think they're going to be. I think they're sorely mistaken. Let's listen to a little bit of Sky News and see how they're taking it.
Alan, we're really grateful for analysis and thoughts. Thank you very much for joining us here on the program. Let's go back to our Mark Stone, who's standing by. And Mark, in about 45 minutes, no, not in 45 minutes, we're still waiting, actually, a couple more hours till we hear from the president. But interesting, a different sort of analysis on the situation, that there really is no certainty around whether this particular operation has been successful, but even greater than that, you know, Israel's push for regime change in Iran, based on even Israeli intelligence,
Maybe
that
you should look at the president's truths.
Likely at this stage.
Yeah, you're right. You were right in what you said initially. It is 45 minutes. It's 9:15 here in Washington. So 45 minutes until we hear from the president. And it will be fascinating to see how he frames this. I think he will frame it as a victory, as a one-hit, in and out, quick, and he will be insistent that that is it, that there will be no unraveling of this from this decision, that things will not unravel. Of course, that's a big if, big gamble, because the Iranians have said that they will retaliate. It's interesting that you and Ali were discussing a moment ago that it's been 24 hours since there was last an Iranian attack on Israel. Are they running out of their ballistic missiles? Are they now incapable?
All right, that's enough of these morons. Let's go listen to our friend Michael Knowles.
Our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordo. That's the one that everyone's been talking about in the last week. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter. There are going to be plenty of conservatives who are thrilled about this, who wanted to engage directly with Iran, but there are going to be a lot of conservatives, maybe even more, who are not so happy with this news. Because I think there are a lot of people who, even though we wanted to take out Iran's nuclear weapons, or rather we didn't want Iran to develop nuclear weapons, we were just kind of hoping the Israelis would take care of it and we would not have to be bogged down in another war in the Middle East. I'm sure President Trump doesn't want to be bogged down in another war in the Middle East. That is why he says, now is the time for peace, don't retaliate. However, a lot of us, with the memories of Iraq and Afghanistan, say anytime the prospect of the U.S. and Mideastern war comes up, we say, well, this is no good. We don't want it. I get it. I've expressed those opinions myself. President Trump has expressed those opinions on the campaign trail. However, I think the big takeaway from this decision is no one should be surprised by it. No one should be surprised by it, one, because President Trump, for 10 years now, has said he will not allow Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. And he said that repeatedly in his old campaigns, in his most recent campaign. So if people are suggesting that they voted for him because they didn't want the prospect of war in Iran, then they weren't listening, because he said it a lot. He's been very consistent on that. Two, the other reason why this could have been expected is, one, Trump, even in the first term, was not totally a dove. One of his biggest foreign policy moves was to take out the top Iranian general, Qasem Soleimani. On top of that, he dropped the Moab, famously. But he pursued a policy that he calls peace through strength, coming from Ronald Reagan. So most of the time, he doesn't want to intervene in the affairs around the world, or most of the time, he doesn't want to intervene in the wars around the world. But in order to have the credible threat of violence, sometimes you actually have to do it. You can't just bluff all the time. But the third reason that I think people should not be surprised by this attack tonight is a little line hidden in some of the reporting that's now coming out of the Pentagon about this attack, namely the way the attack was carried out. All day, people who have been tracking this stuff were tracking B-2 bombers that were being sent into the Pacific, reportedly into Guam. From Guam, the B-2 stealth bombers could fly over Iran and hit the target. So people have been waiting for this all day. Really, we've been waiting for it for all week and even longer. However, one little line in the reporting says that the weapons that were dropped on the Fordo facility were designed specifically with Fordo in mind. In other words, the United States has been preparing for this military action a lot longer than the past few weeks, and a lot longer than
I didn't know that.
The recent war in Israel and the Middle East, and a lot longer than this Trump administration, and maybe a lot longer even than the first Trump administration, because we discovered the Fordo facility in 2009 or earlier. It came to the international attention in 2009. U.S. intelligence probably knew of it much, much earlier than that. Which is why, whatever you feel about this, I think people are totally right to have trepidation about the United States becoming directly involved in another war in the Middle East. I share that concern. I don't know that I'm not one of the people who is jubilant tonight. I'm glad that the American servicemen are now out of Iranian airspace. I'm glad that Iran will not develop a nuclear weapon anytime soon. I'm glad that President Trump launched a successful military operation. But I'm not dancing for joy in the streets here. I have a lot of trepidation about what comes next, which at this point now, I think it's safe to conclude the most likely outcome probably is regime change in Iran, with the Ayatollah down in a bunker somewhere and his chief means of protecting himself blown to smithereens. But I'm not shocked. I'm not surprised. I'm not pulling my hair out or anything like that. I usually am not in politics, because if you're paying attention, you see how these things are going. President Trump has been signaling for weeks at this point that he was prepared to use military action, but this goes deeper than Trump. There are grand strategic operations and objectives that are in place much longer than any one administration. And we can bewail that, and we can lament that, and we can say that's undemocratic, but that's how nations operate. And so tonight's attack was not just a spur of the moment thing. It's not, as the left-wing critics, or even maybe some of Trump's critics on the right, are going to suggest some, reflexive maneuver because, I don't know, he ate a bad taco bowl at Trump Tower that day and felt like bombing a country. That's not what's going on. The attack this evening has been in the works for a very, very long time. It is in line, it happens to be in line with President Trump's strategic vision, and it doesn't really come as much surprise. What comes next is another matter. President Trump will be addressing the nation tonight, so that's all for now. We'll see what President Trump has to say momentarily.
There you go, the great Michael Knowles, and he's right on the money. Some interesting facts in there. I'm going to go after back and listen to that again, because there's some things in there I didn't even know.
Somewhere. But nevertheless, that's the political landscape that we have right now. That's how we're covered tonight. Props to everyone at Real America's Voice. Steve Bannon really holding down the fort, David Zier, and now, Brody, you and I are going to probably quarterback this thing for a little bit and give those guys a little bit of a break. But David, what a world we live in right now. In the last 30 minutes, my phone has absolutely blown up from people that are traveling over to Europe, people that are going over to where the NATO summit will take place coming up next week, and they're very concerned about the security around the world. So, David Brody, I ask you right now, and I can read it on X as well, Americans are scared, and rightfully so. We know there will probably be some type of retaliation from the Iranian government towards not only U.S. assets, military assets around the world, but perhaps potentially, because we've let in 2.4 million gotaways in this country. How concerned should Americans be right now that are living here in the States or abroad somewhere in Europe?
Well, there's no doubt, Brian, they should be concerned. I don't think there's any question about it. But we're not going to, as you know, Brian, you'd be the first one to say this, we're not going to play the CNN, MSNBC fear-mongering game. We're going to play the reality game. You know, and the reality is that they got sleeper cells here. We know that. And the question is, are they going to be activated? You know, I can tell you this. I was just looking. This came across a few minutes ago, Brian. There's an Iranian state TV program that just aired a map of United States military bases, and this is what they said on the Iranian state TV program just minutes ago, quote, Mr. Trump, you started it, and we will end it. So bravado and tough talk from Iran, but look, they are a neutered country at this.
All right, we'll get back to these guys. Let's see what Senator Cotton's saying.
Peace, or whether there's going to be further war. I hope the leaders of Iran understand at this point that Donald Trump does not bluff, that Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu together mean business. And they have ended Iran's nuclear program, which was the key military objective that America has had for years. And it took Donald Trump to finally do so.
We can't understate what Israel has done in this case. And Israel has shown that there's only so many missiles you can fire into their country. But they were able to sneak in drones for the initial attack that they had against Iran.
Always going to be expensive for America because
they actually went to that. They're not covering this live.
Many of our allies or even
that seems crazy to me.
Have a fairly narrow geographical.
They actually went to Bill Maher's show.
So focus on that.
Why are they not live?
They can be more economical on that. We try
that seems wild to me.
Do a wide range of things, and that's.
All right, let's go back here. Let's see what
to Iran's rescue over the coming months and years in terms of resurrecting its program, possibly. That should just be kept in mind that the program could be deeply damaged today. Does Iran's pursuit of nuclear technology go away? No, at least a desire to. Whether they could carry it out is another question. The final thing I would just say is that just a note of caution. Yes, there have been attacks in recent years where Iran has not responded to the degree that many feared, including to the killing of Soleimani. But Anderson, you and I and others currently on the air now, we remember the thoughts in the wake of the Iraq invasion in March going back to 2003, that looked like it was over in the weeks and months afterwards, and of course it wasn't. And there are a lot of attempts at regime change in the region.
Gordon Chang makes an interesting point here. I think the sending here. Let me make this a little bigger for you. I think the sending of the B-2s to Guam was not a signal to Iran. It was, I believe, a signal to China and to North Korea.
Earlier, how long is it going to be before the U.S. knows exactly the impact of what they have just done in terms of
the Supreme Leader? We know right now where you are. We're not going to kill you, but we know where you are. He did make that statement. And I think I would venture a pretty good guess tonight that the world, and especially that region, is breathing a sigh of relief tonight, because nobody wanted Iranian hegemony. What Donald Trump accomplished in his first term that he never really got a lot of credit for was the shared intelligence and the partnership that he had with the United States and Israel and the Emirates and the Saudis and the Egyptians and the Jordanians, all against Iranian hegemony. I would imagine that the leaders of all of those countries tonight are grateful to President Donald J. Trump.
Yes, I agree, Sean. There are two things respected above all else in the Middle East: strength and iron will. Donald Trump has demonstrated both tonight. Benjamin Netanyahu has demonstrated over the last few weeks. Our militaries, both the United States and the Israeli Defense Forces, have demonstrated their capabilities are second to none. So it's time for Iran's leaders to make a decision. Do they want to bring this to a close by suing for peace and accepting the terms that we will provide? Or do they want to take their lives into their own hands by targeting Americans in the region or around the world? Again, as you said, President Trump.
Yeah. Amit Segal, who I follow pretty closely, he's a reporter from, I think, Channel 12 in Israel, says tonight, the Iranians thought Trump wasn't serious, so they got hit by an Israeli strike. They still thought he wasn't serious and ended up absorbing the mother of all bombs. Will they finally understand and stop the war before there's a third round? And that is a good question. All right, let's see what we got. Rav is still in. We're about half an hour from the president's address. Rav's in commercial. Cotton's on with Sean. I don't see a ton of other immediate stuff coming in on socials that I think are anything new. There's a troll, someone saying in the chat. That's fine. Whoop-de-doo. What else is new? Who's the troll? I don't see it. Damon, you expect the mainstream media to cover the truth? I'm sorry, what? To actually cover the truth? So sad. I don't even know what that means. Why do people watch if they're going to make stupid comments like, just go watch something else then? I don't know what to tell you. All right, let's see. Let's go back to Rav here. Brody and...
Safe about a nuclear weapon. I think a nuclear weapon in the hands of the Iranian government is disastrous. But what are you reading in your circle of followers and influence on social media right now?
Well, look, I think it's kind of a bit of a wait and see. First of all, I think where you and I kind of landed right at the beginning when we started talking 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, is where everybody is right now, which is that President Trump did a bold and courageous move tonight. And Brian, as I was telling David Zier about 10 minutes ago or so, I mean, this feels to me like, give him the Nobel Peace Prize at this point. And I know that's counterintuitive, but seriously, I mean, if you have a nuclear-armed, disarmed Iran.
All right, let's go over here.
This man, shouldn't we have a little faith in the United States military? We just kicked their ass. We just took out what they've spent 40 years trying to build, and hundreds of billions of dollars with the help of the North Koreans, the Chinese, and the Russians, and anybody else they can get. We took out those sites. The Israelis laid the foundation. We brought our bombers in that weren't touched, not by a moth. Dropped these massive bombs, blew them to Kingdom Come, and left. There's no other military on the face of the earth that could do that. There's not another commander-in-chief that has the guts to do what President Trump did. Let me give you a little walk down history lane. In 2006, Bill Clinton had an opportunity to blow up the North Korean nuclear site. You know what he did? He passed. Now they have 50 nuclear weapons and enough material for 90. What did Obama do? Obama was cutting deals left and right, and he cut a deal that would have given them a nuclear weapon within 10 years, really this year, and would have enshrined it, would have made it possible. They'd have a nuclear weapon right now. What did Trump do? He ripped it up. He signed it with a pen. You know what? He gave me the pen. What else? Joe Biden was literally funding their nuclear program. He was funding the enemy. Donald Trump walks in, says, what the hell's going on here? Now, sometimes the military has to be used if it's used by a smart commander-in-chief, if it's used wisely, if it's used for a specific purpose, it gives us peace. So I want the so-called, I don't know what to call them, people running around, warmonger, the sloganeers. This should be an education for you, too. This should be an education for you, too. America, don't you feel relief? Of course you feel relief. Because these Islamo-Nazis were building nuclear weapons to attack us, too, with intercontinental ballistic missiles. Guess what? You can go to bed peacefully tonight. No, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Not because of Obama, not because of Biden, not because of the Democrats, not because of some Republicans, because of Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump has a way of doing his thing. He'd rather not do this sort of thing, but if he's going to do it, he's going to do it. He's going to do it right. You've heard our reporting here. He didn't send one B-2. He didn't send two B-2s. He sent three B-2s. They didn't drop 1, 2, 3 of these bombs. They dropped 6. And just in case, we had our subs out there, nuclear subs. And what did they do? They shot 30 Tomahawk missiles. That is, this mission was never going to fail under this commander-in-chief. This is historic. He is historic. The United States military is historic. This is a big damn day. This is just like Reagan in front of the gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Well, he said, hey, Supreme Nazi, tear down your nuclear programs. And he gave him nothing but disrespect. He killed him over and over and over again. Take it apart, or we're going to have to do this. Take it apart, or we're going to have to do this. And they kept defying us. You want to know why? Because they're Islamo-Nazis, that's why. And he did it for them. We also give a little hat tip to Benjamin Netanyahu. What that military has done there over the course of the last 9 days is unbelievable. They've taken out their military superstructure. They've taken out their nuclear scientists. They're taking out one after another after another. They're wearing down their ballistic missiles and everything. You know what this reminds me of, honestly? Reagan and Thatcher. Reagan and Thatcher defeating the Soviet Union. This is big. One of your guests mentioned, you know who's watching this? Xi in Communist China. He's going, holy mackerel. Whoa. You know who's watching this? Putin. Putin. He's got 1 million people dead. He keeps running them into the grinder, Look what Trump just did. Look what he did. Guess what? There wasn't a regional war, and there's not going to be a regional war. There's not World War III. There was not going to be World War III. The Israelis didn't drag us into it. I want the anti-Semites, sit down and shut up. The Israelis didn't drag us into this. The Israelis are defending themselves. We're defending ourselves. That's what took place. Now, what's the reaction of the Democrats? Impeach Trump. These are sick people. Sick. You know why? Because their guy Clinton couldn't do it. Obama couldn't do it. Biden couldn't do anything. If they had their way, if Kamala Harris had been president of the United States, Iran would have nuclear weapons. That's it. They would have nuclear weapons. Donald Trump is a man of peace, but he's not stupid. He doesn't put his head in the ground like some of the people were urging him to do. His forever wars are murder. He just destroyed them.
Hey, Mark.
A forever war. And the Israelis still have to fight it. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I want to ask you this, but.
Yep, I agree. I love that line. This was never going to fail with Trump at the helm. This mission was never going to fail with Trump at the helm. Trump is not in for failure. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Levin's going to river dance on his desk. Let's see. What else we got? God's hands are on our president. There you go. I know we're going to war with Iran, but will the draft start is the only question. Keep dreaming up these scenarios, folks, some of you. Let's see. I'm going through socials. Mike Benz put out a long video today. I don't know. It was, I mean, I get why he did it. It's kind of enjoyable and I see someone else now is following in his footsteps, putting clips of the movie, basically saying that this whole scenario that's being played out was basically what was played out in Top Gun Maverick. I don't know. I thought it was kind of silly, but Iranian television reports bombings at Fordo. Yeah, this is 55 minutes ago. We know. The president told us even before 55 minutes ago. These people who take to X, who talk about how upset they are tonight, but none of them have... I always notice that none of them have an alternative of how to deal with the situation. It's so easy to talk about Trump from the cheap seats. None of them offer anything to the discussion about what they would do then if they sat in the seat, if they got the intel, if they had to make the decision. They offer nothing to the body politic, nothing to the discussion except whining and bitching. And after they're done whining and bitching, they offer no alternatives other than, oh, we should have trusted them. They're no threat. Seems beyond crazy. Charlie Kirk's on our network. See what he's saying.
They have all the planes fully, literally they have engines running. They have cars ready to go. You could tell when a ballistic missile is taking off, and because of our technology, we could tell within a couple of miles where that ballistic missile is going to go. So we have right now full radar capacity all over.
Okay, we're going to drop back into our coverage. That was Charlie Kirk's live coverage on this Saturday night. Thanks for joining us on this very historic Saturday night that it's turned out to. We've had David Zier at the White House. David Brody is in D.C. We'll have Terrence Bates join us here in a few minutes. But I want to bring in our good friend John Solomon there in D.C. to kind of break down some. You've got some breaking news from what I understand. And John, what a historic night that we have. What do you have for me, John?
When those V2s came across Fordo, they dropped a half dozen bunker buster bombs. Those 30,000 super penetrating bombs. 5 to 6 of those bombs hit Fordo. That is an extraordinary payload. There is nothing left of Fordo. Open source intel says it is entirely gone. This was a facility under a mountain and then concrete reinforced and deep, deep into the earth. And it is now just a giant hole after those extraordinary 30,000 pound bunker busters were dropped. So we have now a good sense of the payload, the size of what was delivered on that site. Smaller payload delivered to the other locations, which were not as fortified. The early intelligence estimates are that all 3 sites are significantly destroyed, inoperable. Iran's nuclear program has been brought to a standstill by the great work of our military today.
I want to bring in Lieutenant Colonel Rob Maness into this conversation, John. The 3 of us will kind of roundtable some topics. Lieutenant Colonel, thank you.
All right, I'll get back to this in a second. I'll leave it on. I want to just bring Jennifer Griffin on X. President Trump tells Sean Hannity. Now, let's see, Levin is still on, so I don't think the president... Let me just put this up. I don't think the president has called in. I'm sure the president wouldn't have called in
in our country.
before he gives his speech.
Donald Trump just prevented World War III by using the United States military to stop it. Now, it's important that we take lessons from this. One other
Okay. Jennifer Griffin on X says, President Trump tells Sean Hannity that 6 MOP 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs were dropped on Fordo, and 30 TLAM Tomahawk missiles were fired by U.S. submarines at Natanz and Isfahan, destroying all 3 nuclear facilities completely. So 6 bunker busters from 3 different B-52s, I guess it is, because I think they each carry 2. And then 30 Tomahawk missiles from U.S. submarines to finish the job. Just absolutely incredible. I mean, the call that this guy made tonight is just, I don't care what anybody says. These whining whiny little bitches can continue to second guess him, but I won't be one of them. Let's see. All right, let's go back and listen
And
here.
gang members and known terrorists that Joe and Kamala let into the country. And common sense says you don't let the #1 state sponsor of terror have nuclear weapons. Great one. Mark Levin, we'll try to get back to you if you're around after the president speaks. We expect him to speak in about 15 minutes from right now. But here now with analysis of tonight's very successful air campaign against Iran is the former 8th Air Force Commander, retired Lieutenant General Mark Wetherington is with us.
Safer now.
See what they're talking about over here.
And now I think we're all waiting to see what President Trump will say in his speech and how he will explain his decision, and if he's going to say where he's going to take next the current situation.
Brock, there's so much to ask you about, but what are you hearing from, you're incredibly well-sourced, what are you hearing from the Israeli side? What are your thoughts about what just occurred?
Well, that's definitely, a significant, to say that this is a significant development is the understatement of the century. I think if you ask...
Well, here's how we know that everything was destroyed. Breaking, Iranian officials assert the nuclear sites were not damaged beyond repair. I would say that's almost a guarantee to know that, in fact, they were. I think if Trump had any inkling that they were not, I think round 2 would be happening right now.
There's really no diplomatic path with Iran, especially after the Iranians rejected.
It's the only capability like this in the world. No other nation has the capability to conduct a long-range strike of this intensity, of this type, of this scale. No one else has this kind of weapon to get to a complex target as deep as it is. I trust that the administration did a fantastic job of reviewing the intelligence available to them, looking at options, and coming up with an attack that would achieve their objectives. I would caution you and say it will be days, weeks, maybe months for us to do a full functional analysis and really understand if this attack, a very successful attack by all accounts, but did this attack achieve the objectives? How much did it set back that Iranian program, and for how long?
Well, wouldn't you think, based if they were able to hit the Fordo facility, for example?
Making the drop there in the nuclear area to destroy those. Mark, Terrence, welcome in on this Saturday night. Do you guys have any idea we'd be talking about this, Terrence?
Well, you know what? I wish I could say I had no idea, but when President Trump said within 2 weeks, my gut, which is pretty well developed because I eat quite a bit, my gut said within 2 weeks means almost immediately, and it sounds like that's exactly what's happened. Just some up-to-date reporting. New York City now, NYPD saying that they've raised security as a result of all of this. Also, we're getting reaction now from Congress. I'm just going to read off some of the things. House Speaker Mike Johnson writing, President Trump has been consistent and clear that a nuclear-armed Iran will not be tolerated. That posture has now been enforced with strength, precision, and clarity. And Senate Majority Leader John Thune also saying that the Iranian regime's misguided, and this is a quote, misguided pursuit of nuclear weapons must be stopped. So that's just some of the immediate reaction coming in now from Capitol Hill. But I think all of us are waiting to hear from the president. He is set to speak here. Let me look at my clock. He's set to speak here in about 10 minutes, and I think that's going to really clear.
A couple things I want to bring to your attention. I'll leave that and I'll get back to that in a second. Doug Stafford, who is a chief strategist for Rand Paul, just tweeted out, according to sources, the VP, the Secretary of Defense, and DNI Gabbard advised against getting involved. Why have them if you're not going to listen to them? That's an interesting tweet. And if he's correct about that, it's absolutely crazy that there were no leaks about this. And like I said, just as Jennifer Griffin said, she's never seen such operational security, privacy around this, the way this went down. According to sources, the VP, the Secretary of Defense, and DNI advised against getting involved. And I saw something earlier today to say that the vice president had pushed back on a very heated call with Israeli, I guess somebody in this is, I don't know if it was Israeli defense minister or somebody, that the VP had pushed back and said, nah, we don't, that he doesn't think America should be involved. So very interesting. Mike Benz is now out with a video
that the U.S. had used the B-2 stealth bombers that they just moved into the area to bomb 3 different sites inside of Iran, 3 different nuclear facilities, nuclear energy facilities that may have been used for making nuclear weapons. We don't know. That's the allegation. And dropping, quote, a full payload of bombs on Fordrow, the main site that Top Gun Maverick was about. Now,
he's really caught up in this.
We don't have any information beyond that. And I'm sort of posting this into the vacuum because there are so many questions and so many implications. But I guess I'll just start stream of consciousness with my initial reaction, which is that all of these were nuclear energy sites. And from what he said, it does not imply that there was other military or civilian targets. The first thing that immediately comes to mind is 2018 Syria, when Trump was under a tremendous amount of pressure to put, basically to declare war on Syria and to do what the Biden administration
drilled nuclear facility. Each one of those bombs drills into the ground about 60 meters. They have flattened Fordo to nothing by the early assessments from satellite reconnaissance. But I just want the psychological effect. That bomb impact would have been felt 50, 60, 100 miles away. They dropped 6 of them, almost like a small nuclear weapon. It is such a massive bomb. There is a psychological effect that also occurs here. The might of the United States shook the ground in Iran in a way that Iran has never been shaken before. And I think there have to be some rethinking among the leaders in Iran how much more of this they want to put up with. So this is a moment. That's why President Trump put out a statement. All right, I did my job. Now it's time for you to come to the table and make a real peace negotiation. We'll see how they respond in the next few days.
Yeah. Terrence, what do you think our neighbors and our allies over in Europe are thinking right now? They're much closer to all of this. We've got what I call, and one people call, ocean privilege. What do you think Europe is thinking about right now?
You know, Brian, that's a great question because that's something I've been thinking about, given the backdrop of President Trump heading over to Europe to meet with other NATO leaders.
All right, we'll get back to that. Let me AOC tonight. This is like the mountain of rich. When you talk about, boy, that's a little rich. For people who want to burn down the Constitution, this is going to be their excuse tonight. The president's disastrous decision to bomb Iran without authorization is a grave violation of the Constitution and congressional war powers. No offense. I'll accept this from Thomas Massie or Rand Paul or somebody, but sorry, not interested in hearing it from you because your party has no regard for the Constitution whatsoever. 364 days of the year. The one day that it fits your narrative, that you're going to wrap yourself in it, you're going to tweet that, Yeah, no thanks. Benjamin Netanyahu tonight just posted this.
Congratulations, President Trump. Your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history. In Operation Rising Lion, Israel has done truly amazing things. But in tonight's action against Iran's nuclear facilities, America has been truly unsurpassed. It has done what no other country on earth could do. History will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapons. His leadership today has created a pivot of history that can help lead the Middle East and beyond to a future of prosperity and peace. President Trump and I often say, peace through strength. First comes strength, then comes peace. And tonight, President Trump and the United States acted with a lot of strength. President Trump, I thank you. The people of Israel thank you. The forces of civilization thank you. God bless America. God bless Israel. And may God bless our unshakable alliance, our unbreakable faith.
Okay, there you go. That was from Bibi tonight. Let's go back over here.
4 minutes, as early as the next 4 minutes. When that happens, we will bring that live to you. But we bring back Jennifer Griffin, who has new information from the Pentagon tonight. Jennifer, what are you hearing?
Well, Sean, those B-2 bombers that took part in the strike on Fordo, they are on their way back home. They are on their way back to Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. That's a round trip of about 30 hours.
Quick day's
and
work.
They'll be refueled along the way. In terms of bomb damage assessment, as Chad was discussing, there's no indication at this point that there needs to be a second wave of airstrikes. The initial bomb damage assessment, which was done immediately over Fordo, the president himself said in a tweet, in a Truth Social post, that Fordo is gone. What he meant by that is that the 6 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs that were dropped, most likely there were 3 bunker busters dropped in each of the 2 vents, I'm told, that are at Fordo. So there was a lot of focus on the entrance and the exit to the site, but in fact, I'm told what was much more important to look at were the vents. And there are 2 vents into Fordo, and if they dropped 3 bunker busters into those, they would have dropped them sequentially. The first 30,000-pound bomb would have cleared the way, would have gone down at least 200 feet, exploded, removed earth, and then the second and third would have gone in. And that is why I think the president said with confidence tonight that Fordo is gone. But I've also been speaking to other sources, Sean, who tell me that Isfahan, the underground enrichment site at Isfahan, was in fact a harder target than Fordo. A lot of talk about Fordo in recent days, but again, all part of this operation has been a great deal of deception. So all eyes on Fordo and the B-2 bombers, but at Isfahan and Natanz, we understand, based on your conversation with the president, that 30 Tomahawk missiles were fired from those submarines, submarine or submarines. It's not clear whether one or more were used, but 30 Tomahawks targeted Isfahan and Natanz, and I'm told that Isfahan was in fact the hardest of the 3 sites. And in terms of what kind of submarine was used, I'm told from well-placed sources that it was likely a converted Ohio-class guided missile sub. So that would be like the USS Florida or USS Georgia, as Lucas first reported earlier this evening, Sean.
Let me ask you, Jennifer, if I may. I mean, obviously, this phase of this military operation has been a complete success, as you are describing. I am told that the Pentagon, the Defense Department, the president, everyone on his team have gamed out any and every possibility of any retaliation of the Iranians, and that part 2 of this mission is already in play, and that is to protect every American asset in the region. Have you heard the same?
Absolutely, Sean. These war plans have been honed for the last 20 years, and they are honed very frequently. And part of the most important part of this, the first night of strikes against Iran's nuclear program, were always going to be the easiest. They are technically very challenging in terms of the complicated refueling of these B-2s that fly all the way from the United States. But that is actually the easy part, as we have described, especially since the Israelis had helped with getting air superiority over with the last 10 days of bombing of those air defense systems in Iran. But now comes the hard part. Now comes the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, which has, they have a navy that can essentially plant mines in the Strait of Hormuz. We heard there was an explosion earlier tonight at Bandar Abbas where an Iranian Navy vessel had been blown up. At first, they thought that it was the Israelis, but then the Israelis denied it was them. I would bet, Sean, that there are U.S. Navy SEALs and others right now preparing for a counterstrike. Certainly, the U.S. took many precautions. There is nobody at the American embassy in Iraq right now. All of the ships at the Fifth Fleet, based in Bahrain, have been moved out to sea. Sean.
All right, we really appreciate it. We'll come back to you, Jennifer Griffin, at the Pentagon tonight. We appreciate you being with us. If you are just joining us, we're going to bring you up to speed with all that's going on. It's 10 o'clock on the East Coast, 7 o'clock on the West Coast. And if you are just joining us, 3 nuclear facilities inside of Iran have been struck. And according to President Trump, it looks like Fordow, that was the site that was buried deep in a mountain. That was the most difficult site that Israel needed help with, is completely gone tonight, with 6 bunker buster bombs being used in that case to take out those sites. On the other 2 sites where the Israelis had taken out about 75% of their nuclear capability, enrichment capability, the president used and authorized the use of Tomahawk missiles, and they were fired from about 400 miles away from U.S. submarines. All missions seem to be a complete success. This phase of the mission seems to be a complete success. But we go back to Trey Yangst. He's in Israel tonight with the latest information there. Obviously, like the United States has gamed out any possible retaliation, so too have the Israelis, I am sure, Trey.
Yeah, Sean, absolutely.
A couple of the things I want to bring to your attention. Sarah Adams, a couple of them I posted, a couple of the tweets I'm seeing that I think are worth sharing. Sarah Adams says tonight, Al-Qaeda should take note tonight. Never get comfortable, especially in Afghanistan. The U.S. will not sit idly by while you threaten us. Let tonight's bombings in Iran serve as a clear warning. Stay in your sandbox. And what she starts that by saying is that Iran's a paper tiger. Oh, let's go. President. Oh, president.
Facilities in the Iranian regime, Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
President Trump at the White House with Vice President Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. The president,
all right, there you go, President Trump.
A very powerful statement, ending with him thanking God and the United States military. He praised the military.
If you all don't mind, I want to watch that one more time on the White House feed, since I missed a little bit of the beginning of it, because I thought that was fantastic from the president. So let's watch it one more time.
Thank you very much. A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody. And
okay, there you go. I wanted to see a little more about some very interesting things in there from the president about, basically saying, hey, get it together or this may not be over. If we have to continue to keep the pressure on, we will.
Sign now a deal. They're not going to stay up, because I think the concerning part, at least the part that's open-ended, is these additional strikes, right? He was pretty adamant.
I think he might be sending a message to Steve. I think he might be trying to try to deter any significant Iranian response here, right? There are still American bases and military assets and frankly civilians throughout the Middle East that and here too in the United States. I mean, I think there is likely to be a lot of concern among Americans here about at home about possible cyber attacks, about possible sleeper cells that are Iranian-aligned folks, Hezbollah-aligned folks, maybe here domestically in the United States. And there's I think he's trying to deter that. He's trying to send a message to the Iranians, I think, there by saying, all right, we're done. We did what we wanted to do. There's nothing else coming unless you guys do something more. So I think that it's a pretty clear message. I think the president's pretty strong here in response. I mean, look, events will determine what happens next. It's still the middle of the night in Iran, and it's getting pretty late here on the East Coast. So the fact is that I don't think we'll have an answer tonight.
It's not the middle of the night in Iran. I think it's actually coming to. I think it's sunrise or beyond. Right. I think it's about 6, 7 in the morning.
So I have to keep Googling what time is it in Iran. So but the point is that what Iran's response looks like, if any. I think the president's trying to deter a significant Iranian response, and that's why I think he was being as aggressive and belligerent in talking about future strikes in those remarks. But I do think that the president made it clear that he achieved the objective, and he doesn't want this to continue. The president is saying he doesn't want this to continue. The only way things continue with any American involvement here is if the Iranians want it to continue, right? And I think that as this progresses from here, we'll see if events shape out that way or not.
What was your sense when you talked to congressional leaders? Like I said, most of them had not been read into this. A few, I think, were, I don't even know, brief, but given a heads up. Where do they stand?
So I talked to a few different Senate offices and House offices in the time since I left the studio and came back home to come in live here and watch the president. They were saying that generally speaking, they're very supportive across the board. I haven't talked to any Republicans who are not. They wanted to get a sense of where the base is at. And I kind of told them, I'm like, I think that if this is it, then I think people will be pretty supportive of that. The question is will it drag out into a longer drawn-out conflict?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. I think there are a number, particularly under 35. I think they got to be brought along, and it's got to be explained in more depth, particularly why Israel didn't do this. I just think you got to do it, right? I can tell in the live chats there's some work to do. It's interesting that Risch tonight, when Risch said no more forever wars, we're not doing any more than this. I mean, he was more adamant, right, than other people we've heard tonight. Anyway, Matt, can you hang on?
All right, Steve's still caught up in forever war, but let's go back over here.
God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel. God bless America. And with that said, We know Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We got his first remarks as well. President Trump and I often say peace through strength. First comes strength, then comes...
All right, we heard all of that. Yemen ready to attack all American ships and warships in the Red
اللبناني
Sea.
والسوري صادر عن القوات المسلحة اليمنية بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال تعالى وقاتلوا المشركين كافة كما
Is this real or is this like a Saturday Night Live skit? If it's real, like, how do you take this guy seriously? Like, with a $4 blue curtain behind him and this thing over here that, I mean, really? Okay, well, that's where we are, folks. As we hit 10:15 on the East Coast. Tucker has joined me. Right, Lana? Do you want to say hello? Are you camera shy? Why you keep dipping down? He won't stand up. I think he's camera shy. Okay, it's okay. He's a good boy. All right, so that's where we're at. 10:15. I think we've pretty much covered all the immediate stuff that we need to cover. Thank you all for joining me. 6,100 people in here tonight. I mean, there's nothing else I'm seeing that I feel like I need to bring you. Just the overreaction from the white glove hands-off crowd is, now they're calling for Trump's impeachment tonight. People who voted for him. Our friend Josh Hammer, friend of the show, well, suffice it to say, all those rumors of a Trump-Netanyahu rift were, well, more than a little exaggerated. Good point. Weird to have a president who isn't 2 hours late for every presser. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that's about it. That's a wrap. I think that's a good place to wrap. We'll, if anything else, obviously is extremely newsworthy or breaking, I'll maybe jump back on again tomorrow with an update if something happens or we get more information. But I think that's pretty much it for tonight. A historic night. God bless President Trump. God bless our military. And again, want to thank everybody for joining me. Obviously spurred a moment. Didn't know this was going down. So appreciate y'all. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend. If I don't see you again, obviously we'll recap everything and see where we are come Monday night, 8 p.m. live from Studio 6B. So enjoy the rest of your night, everybody. Have a great Sunday tomorrow. Say a prayer for the country. Say a prayer for the president. And I'll see you Monday night at 8 p.m. Thanks, everybody. Love you all.